Random House Audio presents A Chain of Thunder, a novel of the Siege of Vicksburg, by Jeff Shaara. Read for you by Paul Michael. Verily, war is a species of passionate insanity. Mary Ann Loughborough, civilian, Vicksburg, Mississippi. To the reader. This story focuses on the campaign that results in the siege and conquest of the crucial Mississippi River city of Vicksburg. It is the second volume of a series that explores the often overlooked story of the Civil War in the West. Quotation marks are necessary because to our eye today, West would certainly take us far beyond the shores of the Mississippi River. Yet, throughout much of the Civil War, events that occurred just west of the Appalachian Mountains were often overshadowed by the great battles to the east, which took place close to what we would refer to now as the great media centers of their day. Those events, from Kentucky to the Gulf Coast, from Texas and Arkansas to Missouri and even New Mexico, were as bloody and as significant to our history as what took place in and around Virginia. Throughout the war, both sides understand the critical importance of railroads and rivers, the two primary means of moving goods and people across vast distances. In the first volume of this series, A Blaze of Glory, the issue primarily is railroads, specifically the Union's effort to capture a critical rail junction at Corinth, Mississippi, which results in the Battle of Shiloh. Now, roughly 1 year later, the Federal armies under the command of Ulysses S. Grant seek to further divide and thus weaken the Confederacy by seizing the last major Southern obstacle to Northern control of the Mississippi River, the city of Vicksburg. This story follows several pivotal characters through the spring and summer of 1863, as Grant and his generals push through the state of Mississippi, facing off against Confederate forces under the command of General John Pemberton. Some of the voices in this story will be familiar to any student of the war. Generals William T. Sherman and Joseph Johnston, as well as Grant and Pemberton. Brought forward from the first volume is Private Fritz Dutchy Bauer of Wisconsin, whose baptism of fire at Shiloh shapes the kind of soldier he will become. The fourth primary voice is something of a departure for me. The story of Vicksburg is not just a story of battles and generals, and so my research sought out the voices of the civilians, the citizens of Vicksburg, who suffer mightily and whose tenacity is a part of this story that cannot be overlooked. So often in war, civilians are tragically involved simply by being in the way. In Vicksburg, their ordeal affects the way many civilians throughout the divided country will come to view the horrors of this war. They come to represent what the conflict has become, evolving from what some saw as a gentleman's spat between men of honor into a brutal war that will deeply impact towns and cities and their inhabitants. There is a poignant comparison to be made between Vicksburg and what has taken place a few months earlier at Fredericksburg, Virginia. In December 1862, the citizens of Fredericksburg embark on a mass exodus away from their town, fearing the horrific battle that does indeed occur. In the spring of 1863, the residents of Vicksburg are offered the same opportunity for escape, and yet an overwhelming percentage of them decide to remain in their homes. And thus one of those voices is essential to telling this story, 19-year-old Lucy Spence. I am not an academic historian. If you know of my work, you know that from the Revolutionary War through World War II, my focus has been on the people, whose accomplishments and failures have become a visceral part of our history. This is a novel by definition because there is dialogue, and even if a character is well known historically, the point of view has to be described as fictitious. My research has always focused on a study of the original source materials, diaries, memoirs, collections of letters, the accounts of the people who were there. Often, when it fits the flow of the story, I quote their words verbatim. But in every case, their experiences and the events from the historical record are as accurate as I can portray them. If I don't believe in the authenticity of the voices here, neither will you. I am frequently asked if there are veiled references in any of my stories to more modern events, a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, that what I'm really offering is a parable to more modern times. Absolutely not. There is no judgment here, no history in hindsight, no veiled references to any more recent event or person. One enormous irony of the campaign for Vicksburg is that it ends exactly 1 day after the conclusion of the Battle of Gettysburg. Obviously, since Gettysburg is much closer to both Washington and Richmond, that battle has always received enormous attention. But it is a point of debate even today whether Vicksburg or Gettysburg had the greater impact on the outcome of the war. That debate I leave to others. This is a story told through the eyes of the characters, and to most of them, the events they experienced were the most important of their lives. To me, that's what makes a good story. I hope you agree. Jeff Shaara, April 2013. Introduction. From the earliest months of the Civil War, many of the strategists and political leaders of both sides consider control of the Mississippi River the key to victory. The original Anaconda Plan, as designed by Union General-in-Chief Winfield Scott, includes control of that river as an essential part of any strategy that will ensure victory, along with a total blockade of southern seaports. In the South, Jefferson Davis is equally determined to maintain control of the river. Understanding that free access for federal troops and supplies along the waterway will split the Confederacy in two and eliminate the valuable trans-Mississippi states of Texas, Arkansas, and much of Louisiana as a source of troops, supplies, and food. Throughout the first 2 years of the war, the superior numbers and strength of the Union Navy successfully subdue various Confederate strongholds along the river, many of which, including Memphis, are not suitable for a strong military defense. Once federal forces become ensconced in Memphis, efforts are made to seal off the southern leg of the river. In April 1862, a stunning blow is delivered to Confederate hopes when Admiral David Farragut captures the crucial port city of New Orleans. In the process, Farragut destroys the fledgling Confederate naval fleet stationed there. Confident that his gunboats and ocean-going warships can subdue Vicksburg on their own, Farragut sails northward. Confronting the garrison at Vicksburg, Farragut's officers make loud, blusterous demands that the city avoid certain destruction and simply surrender. But the Confederate commander there, General Martin Luther Smith, understands the strength of his position. Though Farragut shells the town, Smith does not yield. In late May 1862, a frustrated Farragut concedes that his forces cannot complete the task alone, and he returns to New Orleans. But the mouth of the river is now firmly in federal hands, and so Vicksburg becomes the last significant Confederate stronghold between Memphis and New Orleans. What most federal strategists realize will be the toughest nut to crack along the entire length of the river. At roughly the same time as Farragut's gunboats are making their efforts at opening the river far to the north, Union General Ulysses Grant embarks on what becomes a bloody yet successful campaign to wrest control of the western half of Tennessee from Confederate forces. That campaign, which concludes with the Battle of Shiloh, opens the door for federal armies to drive hard into Mississippi and Alabama, with the goal of capturing valuable railroad hubs and slicing the Confederacy into pieces. But Grant's superior, Henry Halleck, is not a man who recognizes opportunity. After his victory at Shiloh, Halleck vacillates, and thus he misses the opportunity to destroy a sizable army under Pierre Beauregard that is entrenched around the rail center of Corinth, Mississippi.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?